Lola. Previously on Lola. After her father's tragic death, Lola and her mother were forced into hardship. Her mother was eventually driven into a life of prostitution, bringing home a strange man as her husband. Lola was repeatedly raped by this man at a tender age. Even though she told her mother about it, her mother turned a blind eye and chose to stay with the man. The rapes continued, and over the course of Lola's life and even into her university days, the trauma from the rape took shape in the way she lived her life. She had several sexual partners, became addicted to drugs, pornography, and masturbation. A desperate Lola took the bold step to seek help from the school counselor, Mrs. Kevwe. Mrs. Kevwe was able to help her through, however, not completely. Years later, we see that Lola is truly not free from this trauma. On the verge of a broken marriage, she opens up to her two daughters and her husband. Now, the family, determined to stay together, is on a quest to find Mrs. Kevwe, who they believe would finish the work she started in Lola. Stay tuned as we join Lola and her family in her quest to find her healing. Lola, her husband, and her two daughters were on the mission to find Mrs. Kevwe, the woman who counseled her many years ago. They decided to start at the very place Lola met her, the University of Ibadan. When they arrived at the school, strong memories rushed through Lola's mind. She remembered how troubled she was, how much of a destitute she was before Mrs. Kevwe came into her life. She passed by the hostel she resided in, and a surge of painful memories enveloped her. She remembered how she would sit all alone in her room, contemplating how to take her life. If she was honest, those thoughts still crossed her mind till today. Finally, they made it to the school office. They made some inquiries and got the last contact number Mrs. Kevwe left behind. They all came together in the car, placed the phone on loudspeaker and dialed. They were unsure whether the number was still valid, but they were determined to try. The phone rang, but there was no answer. They tried 2 more times, but no answer still. Lola sank in her chair. Her hopes were dashed. She said, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was too good to be true. Mommy, don't give up. I'm sure we can find another way to find her. Amarachi began to say when she was interrupted by the phone ringing. The number called back. They picked up the call to hear an unexpected voice. It was the voice of a younger woman. Hello? The woman answered. Hello, we would like to speak to Mrs. Kevwe Ejua, Amarachi said. There was a short pause on the line. Mrs. Kevwe unfortunately passed away 5 years ago. This is her daughter, Margaret. Please, how can I help you? Please hang on 1 second. Let me give my mother. She would like to speak with you. Amarachi handed the phone to her mother and also explained that it was Mrs. Kevwe's daughter. Lola was a little hesitant to take the phone from her, but she eventually did, following the encouragement of her family. Hello? Hello, this is Margaret, Mrs. Kevwe's daughter. How may I help you, ma? Good afternoon. I used to be a student at UI, and your mother was my counselor. I really appreciated her help. We were just wondering if we could talk to her, but seeing that she is no more, I don't know. She helped me many years ago, and we were hoping that she could help me again. Wow, I'm so happy to hear from one of my mom's clients. That's my mother. She loved helping people get through past traumas. Do you mind coming to our therapy hall? We opened it in honor of my mother's name. It's a healing institute for those who have faced all kinds of trauma in the course of their lives. I would love to talk to you in person. I would like that very much, Lola replied and proceeded to pen down the address she was given. They all made their way to the healing institute, unsure of what to expect. When they found the place, Lola went in by herself, clinging only to her purse and her beating heart. The place was fully peaceful. It had a nice scenery and beautiful interior design. It looked like a cozy and homely atmosphere. At the entrance, there was a framed note that read, "In honor of Mrs. Kevwe Ejua, she loved to see people free." She found her way to Margaret's office after receiving direction from the receptionist. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door. "Come in," a voice sang from inside the office. She opened the door to meet a petite but beautiful woman, probably only a few years younger than herself. She looked at her briefly and saw that she had her mother's eyes. Lola extended her hand for a handshake, but Margaret moved closer to her and gave her a tight hug. "Please sit down, let's talk," she said. Both women sat down and began to talk. As Margaret spoke, Lola noticed that she carried the same peace her mother carried in her eyes. She knew she could trust her the same way she trusted her mother. "After Mom passed, I decided to open up this place to help people, especially those who have passed through emotional hardship and trauma. We are a Christian Bible-believing organization, and we combine both scriptural and psychotherapeutic means to treat our patients." She smiled and looked at Lola. Both of them spoke at length. Lola told her everything, the hardship she had faced in her marriage because of what happened, the fear she had of her daughters being victims of the same thing. She didn't hold anything back. She listened to Lola speak, leaned back in her chair, nodded her head at different intervals. When she was finally finished, Margaret sat up in her chair. "I'm sorry for everything that has happened to you, my dear. If you don't mind me asking, do you have a close relationship with Jesus?" "Well, I'm a Christian, but truth be told, I'm not close with Jesus like that," Lola replied. "Well, in this place, we usually encourage our clients to open up their hearts to Jesus and cultivate a relationship with Him. We have found that many of our clients who actually made this choice were healed of emotional problems and are living fulfilling lives today. Here we put in practice a combination of prayers, worship, Bible study, and counseling to help our clients. Through routine progress reports, we are able to assess them." Listening to Margaret made Lola feel hopeful again. Even though accepting Jesus was a recommendation, she was willing to give him a chance. She bowed her head as Margaret prayed with her. Right there in that office, she accepted Jesus into her life. Lola left the office that day with a Bible marked with several verses, church recommendations, and a devotional book specific for people like her. Her assignment was to pray, worship, and read her Bible every single day. She was also given a journal to keep track of her emotional changes over the course of the week. Since she lived in Lagos with her family, she set up weekly virtual progress reports and chats with Margaret. After 2 months of diligently following Margaret's instructions, Lola could already see the changes in her life. She struggled from time to time emotionally, but she felt something strong inside of her fighting for her well-being. She knew it was God. Another 3 months passed by, and she and Margaret still met every single week. So much had changed. Even her family noticed the difference. Her marriage was gradually getting better and better. Her family grew closer and tighter. One day, Lola woke up in the wee hours of the morning. She heard what sounded like an audible voice, and it said, "Forgive." As she sat up still wondering where it came from, she heard again, "Forgive as I forgave." She knew it was the Lord speaking to her, and she immediately knew what He was referring to. She had to forgive the people who hurt her, the people who stole her life from her mother and her stepfather, Lanre. Her mother was still alive, but she had not seen or spoken to her in many years. After talking it over with Margaret, Lola went with her husband to her mother's house. They still lived in the same house after all these years. When she got there, she felt an overwhelming surge of pain as she recalled the trauma she passed through in that house. It triggered some awful memories. It was almost too much to bear. and she almost quit the whole thing. But her husband, Nnamdi, held on to his wife's hand, strengthening her to see it through till the end. She knocked on the door. She heard her mother's voice call out, "Who is there?" There was a pause. I said, "Who is there?" "It's me, Lola, your daughter," Lola answered. There was a momentary silence. Then they could both hear shuffling as her mother came to open the door. She opened it, and before Lola's eyes stood the woman she had resented for all these years. Lola, what are you doing here?" the old woman said. Lola could tell that she was losing her sight. She had lost plenty of weight. Her hair was now bald in some areas, and she had crooked teeth. She looked like she didn't have many more years to live. "Good afternoon, Mama. Is Larry around? I came to talk to you both." Her mother wouldn't even invite them into the house. "Larry is no more. He died 1 year ago." Lola put her head down. "Okay, Mama, can we come inside and talk, Ma?" Her mother still refused to allow them into the house. She told her to say what she needed to say right there at the front door. Lola took one look at her husband, took a deep breath, and started to speak. "Mama, I'm born again now. I have met with Jesus now, and he has healed me of everything that happened in this house." She fought back the pain and tears. "Mama, I forgive you for everything. I forgive Larry for everything. I choose to forgive." When she said it, a peace washed over her. She felt a burden lift away from her. The heaviness was gone. "Is that all you came here for? You ungrateful child. After everything Larry did for you, you are coming here to say you forgive us. I'm not sorry for anything that happened. I sacrificed my body to take care of you children. That was the small price you had to pay." Lola could not believe that her mother still held on to this. She held her husband back from speaking up because she sensed the anger rising in him. Instead, she dropped a Bible and a tract by her mother's feet. "I forgive you, Mommy. I hope you find Jesus someday before you leave this earth." Lola and her husband turned their backs and made their way to their vehicle. They could still hear her mother speaking as they left. It was not the reaction she expected from her mother, but it didn't matter. Lola had forgiven her. A new chapter had begun in her life, even at her age, and she will walk with Jesus for the rest of her life. Jesus, the one who restored her and gave her her life back.